Welcome r/Prorevenge. Slumlord lost his business over $300 security deposit. I rented a little house from a man who owned a painting business. The power was off when we came to see the property, but he assured us everything worked, even put it in the contract. The place was dirty and poorly maintained, so we negotiated the security deposit down to $300. Turned out the heat/air didn't work, along with the refrigerator and dishwasher. I asked him to have someone look at them. He cursed me up and down. He called and left threatening voicemails. He would show up unannounced and let himself in. On one of the visits, I showed him that the crawl space was flooded and was a breeding ground for thousands, if not millions of cockroaches and mosquitoes that would come up through the floor vents. There was absolutely no ductwork, even though he claimed the heat/air worked fine. He accused me of causing the flood myself, even though I showed him the source was a pipe that had rusted through. He refused to address any problems and said, "If you don't like it then you can move. You can't pay for a bargain and expect to live in the Ritz." This man was a terrible man in general. Once he hired someone off Craigslist to cut down a tree in the rental property's yard. The man worked literally all day for the agreed $150, cut up and hauled off the tree. He came back that evening, just standing in the yard. I asked if I could help him. He said he was waiting for the owner to get paid. The owner kept replying saying he was on the way, but never showed up. Our neighbor told us he had punched the previous renter in the face and refused to pay him for a day's work for his company. He had bragged about renting to illegal immigrants and not having to do anything because they wouldn't sue. We had a newborn baby, so we called his bluff and agreed to find a new place to live. We left the home in much better shape than we found it. He said he would mail us the security deposit but never did. He dodged my phone calls until one day he called to say, "You aren't getting it back. You broke the contract when you left early, so go F*** yourself." I was really upset because we were new parents and had very little money. That $300 was a big deal to us and a drop in the bucket for this man. He owned an upscale painting business and had 15 rental properties. The next week, I was online leaving negative reviews for his business when I clicked a link and noticed his website's domain had just lapsed. I knew what I had to do. I immediately bought it, then created a homepage with contact info for his biggest competitor. I emailed him from his old domain, asking him if he wanted to buy the website for $320, the cost of the security deposit plus the price I paid for the domain. He was irate. He started calling my work, threatening to sue my employer. He even contacted my parents and threatened to sue them. He left a bunch of threatening voicemails for me, saying he was going to beat me up, and he knows where I live, and he has my social security number. I received emails from several review sites asking if I was trying to update the contact info for the business. He must have used his old domain's email as his contact email. I didn't want to get in trouble for impersonating his business, so I did not respond. The contact info was never changed. I received a few emails from potential clients. I called him and told him about the painting job requests. I gave him the contact info for one of the clients to prove I wasn't just making it up. I told him it was the last time I was going to do that for him and suggested he buy the website back in order to not miss out on any other jobs. He told me he was taking me to court. I told him I had recorded his threatening phone calls and saved all his texts and voicemails. He said he was going to sue me for illegally recording him, not illegal in my state. I said, "I look forward to seeing you in court where I countersue and press charges for harassing me," and I hung up. He called back and cussed me out for hanging up on him. I said, "Call me back when you can speak respectfully to me," and hung up again. We repeated this about 5 times. Each time he was more angry until the last time. He spoke respectfully and explained he hadn't got a single job in months. I suggested he focus more on creating a website to find business. He lost it and cussed me out again. 6 months passed and he still hadn't bought the website from me. I get a call from him begging me to do the right thing and give him the website back. I told him the current price was $350. 6 months later, I get another phone call. I told him the current price is $380. Eventually, he texted me to say, I went out of business. I hope you're happy. I responded, I hear having a website really helps your business. $380 and it's yours. He told me what a terrible person I am and said, karma's a bitch. I responded, maybe if you stopped trying to rip people off, your karma wouldn't be so bad. That was the last time I ever heard from him. The major business listing sites confirmed his business did indeed close. I renewed the domain for another 2 years just in case he was bluffing. A few months later, I drove by his office to see if it was still there. It was empty with a for rent sign posted. I never got that $300 back and spent money on domain registrations, but it was totally worth it. TLDR, Slumlord unjustly kept my security deposit, so I bought his website. I put his competitor's contact info on the homepage. I offered to sell it back to him for the price of the security deposit. He refused and threatened to sue me repeatedly. He wound up losing his business. Edit, I removed pricing and domain renewal timeline because I was estimating and it was bothering people. It was in 2013 through GoDaddy. But if it really matters to you, I can send screenshots of verifying emails, company info, and the domain address. Just message me because I can't post it here or it would break the rules of not giving out personal info. He considered life a zero-sum game. He can't win unless someone else loses. He simply couldn't stand the idea of losing at life and would lie, cheat and steal to make sure he didn't. And since giving up his money back, giving it to him would count as losing. He was so determined not to let that happen that he ruined his business. There's probably a mental disorder involved. To consider going broke like this a better option over paying a few hundred he genuinely owes, but I don't know what it would be. People are short-sighted idiots. I moved out of a rental property and the landlord, who I'd rented from for 10 years and thought was a decent, if not somewhat aloof guy, not only tried to withhold the security deposit, but found $1,000 of extra damage that he wanted me to pay. It was nearly all bullshit and I went back and forth with him until I finally laid out in detail what laws he was violating and that my next step would be small claims court, which could give me up to triple damages if I showed he was being malicious. He settled with me for a reasonable amount the next day. But here's the short-sighted part. We moved out because he'd been talking about selling the place for a couple years and we decided to get ahead of it on our own time frame rather than waiting for the axe to fall. He bought the place for $250,000 in the 1990s and sold it after we moved out for $1.3 million. Dude literally made $1 million on the place, ignoring taxes, and dicked me around for weeks for $3,000. This reminds me of when I bought a product online through a seemingly reputable company. They called and we agreed a specific delivery date, and because I needed the product by a certain time I paid the extra for expedited delivery. The night before it was due to be delivered I checked up on the progress and discovered they weren't based in the UK, but in the USA, and it hadn't even been dispatched yet. They also weren't covered by a customer protection scheme they claimed to be either, and was plastered over their website. That organization were very interested when I informed them of this. They had never been affiliated with them, and I'm sure now never will be in the future. Long email exchanges with their customer support department, where they claimed they had done nothing wrong and refused to refund me because I no longer needed the product. In order to meet my commitments I'd had to buy it elsewhere and wanted me to pay $30 plus for postage to return it. Eventually I think I ground them down and they agreed a full refund and covered postage. I wrote a scathing, but 100% factual review on Trustpilot, and I still smile when I get the occasional email of ex-users found your review helpful. Based on this post, I might have a gander at their domain expiry. I did report the property we stayed in. I doubt his rentals went under. They did an expose on slumlords in that area because there are so many. Not our house, but one of our neighbors, had a giant hole in the roof for months and the black water from toilets, dumped into their yard instead of the sewer. It was common for grey water, from sinks and washers, to be dumped in yards, but by law, Blackwater has to go to the sewer. These slumlords mostly target illegal immigrants, knowing they are afraid to go to the authorities. I'm calling fake. You can't just buy a domain that has lapsed. In order for it to make its way back to market, it goes through a several month process, where the domain owner could have renewed it for an additional fee, then it would have gone to auction. The selling price would have been far higher than $20. From there, domain registrations are done on a yearly basis. Finally, if this were real, the landlord could have cleared it up with an email to Icon regarding cybersquatting. I don't know all the rules there. I just know I went to his website, it said something like this domain is available. I had been to his website less than a month before that, and it was still up. I bought it through GoDaddy. The first 6 months was $20, then $30 after that. When I renewed for 2 years, it was $100. I did report him, but the police said there was nothing I could do, except take him to court. I was making $12 an hour, so I couldn't afford it. I reported his property for being not up to code. I may have been being billed every 6 months, and mistook that for renewing. GoDaddy allows you to create a basic website for free or almost free. I can send you a link to his Yelp review. It is pretty much gutted now but still says it is closed. I will send you the web address and you can look into it if you want. I just can't post here, because it would break the no personal info rule. You'll see my name attached to it on the registrar history. Message me if you want it. He could have sued me and maybe won, but I would have countersued, and he was into other illegal activities, so I'm sure he did not want to open up that can of worms. Thanks for explaining where you're coming from. I appreciate you taking the time. To be clear, I didn't have access to his website, just his old domain. I created the basic site which was hosted by GoDaddy.